Well, this isn't good. Again, more bad news for Facebook, and this time from the Wall Street Journal. It's reporting that the social media giant actually knew a Mexican drug cartel was using Facebook and Instagram to recruit, train, and pay hitmen, but did nothing about it. And if that's not bad enough, employees also raised alarms about human traffickers in the Middle East using the site to lure women into abusive employment situations. And they also flagged armed groups in Ethiopia inciting violence against ethnic minorities. The platform reportedly removed some of those pages, but dozens of other pages remain current. And earlier this week, the Journal reported Facebook shields a secret elite of politicians and celebrities from content rules, which apply to the rest of us. The Journal's James Freeman with more on it.
You think about Facebook minimizing access to the Hunter Biden laptop story during the election, and yet here we have internal memos, communications, people warning about the most horrible criminal activity being filmed and posted on Facebook, and the company doesn't do too much about it. I don't know how you can look at this situation and say they're making a good faith effort.
Joe Concha, Fox News contributor and media and politics columnist for The Hill. So, Joe, let's just get to the crux of this. They are social media giants. Media is all part of this. Your thoughts?
Oh, completely. And the Wall Street Journal, by the way, exceptional reporting on this week, because it's not based, Harris, on hearsay or unnamed sources, but actual internal documents. How Facebook can knowingly turn a blind eye to Mexican drug cartels using its platform to recruit, to train, to pay hitmen, or recruit women into abusive employment situations in the Middle East, it's as shocking as it is nauseating. And whoever ignored this internally at Facebook should be fired. Per the story, Wall Street Journal, quote, activists have complained for years that Facebook does too little to protect overseas users from trouble it knows occurs on its platform. Mark Zuckerberg should be summoned to Capitol Hill next week, not next month, next week, to answer for this, because he should explain how he's allowing deadly drug cartels, for example, on its platform while banning the 45th president, who the company deems as a bigger threat than the aforementioned. Just incredible.
Well, look, the reason that I kind of leaned on that word media, too, is because this is about trust. You know, when you look at where many people get their news information, they at least look at their phones. Oh, I don't know. I was reading upwards of 250 times a day. It's probably a lot more than that for many people. So it comes down to, what do they have time to take in, which is part of our job now in the media, is to kind of attack some of that and say, well, here are the facts. It's hard to attack it if Facebook won't help by at least pushing back on the people who literally make their living killing others.
Well, that's exactly right. And to your point around media, Pew Research did a great study and found that 86% of Americans get their news online, many of which get it from social media, stories that friends share on places like Facebook and Twitter, right? And Facebook stock, this is why this drives me nuts. They're now up more than 100 points since the same day last year. And you would think that they would maybe, I don't know, hire some more people overseas and here in the States to serve as watchdogs to make sure that these sort of things don't happen. But instead, they're just counting their money at this point and not using resources and money where it should be done. Because as you said, this is life and death kind of stuff here, Harris.
Absolutely. Well, look, I know, like you just said, critics are shredding the head of Facebook-owned Instagram for his defense of the company after the Journal reported that the company buried its own study of Instagram's devastating impact on teenage girls' mental health. So this is a layering now. You have what's going on at Facebook, and then they also own Instagram, and it's a hot, dangerous mess there too. Adam Mosseri is facing a torrent of backlash after a podcast interview where he responded to the bombshell report with these remarks.
I think that anything that is going to be used at scale is going to have positive and negative outcomes. Cars have positive and negative outcomes. We understand that. We know that more people die than would otherwise because of car accidents, but by and large, cars create way more value in the world than they destroy. And I think social media is similar.
One critic tweeted this: Adam Mosseri isn't doing Facebook any favors. Another said, but Facebook and Instagram is a car with faulty seatbelts and bad brakes? Joe.
So the argument is that Cars don't make some people, particularly young women and girls, depressed and suicidal. Cars don't do that. The argument appears to be, hey, you may die in a car crash and get run over, but that's just, the price that you pay in these situations. And look, this reminds me of the 90s a lot, mid-90s. Remember the heads of the 7 tobacco companies, Harris? They all said under oath, put up their hands and said that cigarette smoking is not addictive. And you see with these social media platforms, and I see with my kids, I swear, they're 6 and 7 years old. You give them an iPad, which was supposed to be for educational purposes during the pandemic, and you try to take that iPad away when they're watching something that probably shouldn't, and they become like the kid from The Exorcist. Like you see the addiction there in real time. And I would just think that in this case, Instagram and Facebook, and it should be looking into this more in terms of the effects on girls' health. Let me read you one stat from the Wall Street Journal story. Quote, among teens who reported suicidal thoughts, 13% of British users, 6% of American users traced the desire to kill themselves to Instagram. Wow, we might want to look into that a little bit more.
The problem is the tech companies are addicted to something else. Power. And money. Liberal media appearing to take sides in the debate over whether or not to get vaccinated. So they're jumping in. From calling the GOP a cult-loving or a COVID-loving cult to openly shaming those who refuse to get the shot.
I'm going to read out tonight with a message to Republicans. Okay, we get it. COVID is the precious, and you love it. You love COVID so much you want it to spread into schools, at the office, in the Walmart, on the cruise ships, and at the club. That gray spongy ball with the red spikes, you want it pumping through your veins with an ivermectin chaser.
The people who are not getting vaccines, who are believing the lies on the internet instead of science, it's time to start shaming them. What else? Or leave them behind. Because they're keeping the majority of Americans behind.
She compared COVID for Republicans to Precious in Lord of the Rings. What is going on with Joy Reid?
Joy Reid should not, in any capacity, have anything resembling a national platform. She shouldn't even be on community access television, Harris.
Why is this problematic?
Why is it problematic? Because she is saying things that are profoundly untrue, reckless, only seeking to divide. And look, I get that, opinion people will have their opinions, but we're getting into Alex Jones kind of territory. And how they continue to employ this person is journalistic malfeasance. This is the same person, by the way, last year, and there's tape and plenty of it. On multiple occasions, she said she didn't trust the vaccine last year. So when you see... Oh, you played here. Of course you have to focus. You focus on things. But you look at the stats, and only 43% of African Americans are vaccinated at this point. Compare that to the Asian community, where it's nearly 70%, or more than 50% of whites. And Joy Reid, with that national platform, she helped push vaccine hesitancy. So don't sit here now and make a completely opposite argument when we could play back the tape here in these situations. But NBC won't do anything. They'll continue to employ her in prime time, no less. Fortunately, she's something like 26th overall amongst the 3 cable news networks in terms of her rankings, which is hard to do in prime time. So not a lot of people watching, but at the same time, there she is going viral for all the wrong reasons, and that's everything that's wrong with this business.
And
Joy
there's something
Reid.
that I often bring up, and I don't want to harp on this too much because I understand that people come to their decisions about to be vaccinated or not to be vaccinated from their own lane. But there are a tremendous amount of people of color who have decided that they don't trust the government. And as she sits there and points a finger at the GOP for holding a cultist, hugging something as precious as gold in a stone in a creepy movie that wasn't true that had great acting. She's also doing damage to a community that really needs to be spoken to right now, that has food and pharmacy deserts, a whole lot of reasons why they don't have doctors in their lives to get good information. Why not use her platform for that? All right, I don't want to make it all about Joy Reid, but I had to get that in there. There is huge hypocrisy where she sits as a black woman to not at least address that part too. Well, when it comes to the vaccine, our own Peter Doocy pressed White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Watch.
So it's a requirement for people at a business with more than 100 people, but it's not a requirement for migrants at the southern border. Why?
That's correct.
Your take.
My take is that, again, there it is in broad daylight. It's okay for migrants that are tested positive for COVID to be siphoned into communities throughout the nation. But for businesses, for example, that have more than 100 employees, you must vaccinate your employees. And again, I am vaccinated, Harris, but I don't sit here and are under any illusion that since I say I'm vaccinated, I say you should get it too, that one person's going to change their mind. It's a very personal decision, and that's where we are in the White House. Again, completely mixed messaging, confusing messaging, reckless messaging when it comes to COVID, Harris.
I would think they want to tell people to, get the information from somebody you trust, who doesn't stand behind a lectern to talk to masses. Make it as one-on-one as possible. I'm vaccinated too, by the way. You and I have talked about that. All right. Thank you, Joe Concha. Nancy Pelosi.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Maybe